Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. I've chosen a totally different topic for this show, and I'm calling it Why Can't You See Me? That might sound like something kind of unusual for a medium to talk about. Why can't you see me? But it addresses the different levels of perception that we have and that we experience from others, both in this world and the next. So this show is going to likely spill over the first half into the second half of the show, because I'm going to be weaving together some discourse, some examples of stories from the other side, and some tips for your psychic development. So how are y'all weathering this Mercury retrograde? If you're not familiar with that term, Mercury retrograde happens about 3 or 4 times a year. And it's when the planet Mercury slows down and appears to stop. The astrological term for that is to station. And then it starts to move backwards, hence the term retrograde. Well, it actually doesn't slow down, stop, or move backwards. It's just an optical illusion. But as it recedes from our views, it does appear to go backwards. And this year, all of Mercury's retrogrades are in the air signs of the zodiac. And they're particularly affecting Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra people. Just so you know, we're in the last one of the Mercury retrogrades for the year 2015, and it ends on October 9th. There are some astrologers that say that the effects of a retrograde shadow the 2 weeks leading into it and following the actual retrograde, and that makes sense to me because planets do move slowly and things occur naturally and gradually, but I'll leave that to the experts to dispute. I'm not an astrologer, just intrigued by the field. And actually next week we're going to have an astrologer on our show, and I'll be telling you about that. She's going to be talking about how astrology affects your chakras. I guess I could go ahead and reveal her name. Her name is Zara Ali. She's in Canada, and she's a medium astrologer, so that'll be an interesting show. Well, Mercury isn't the only planet that reverses course during the year. It's just the most notorious one. Maybe because Mercury is the planet that rules communication. It's the messenger. So it affects anything that brings us media, computers, postal mail, publishing, books, travel. The other planets have retrograde cycles too. In fact, all of them do except the sun and moon, and that's from the Earth's perspective. Mercury retrograde is known for a time of increased auto accidents, so drive extra safely, use your rear view mirror, and pay attention to other people's behavior on the road. It's responsible for an increase in technology failures, computer crashes. So just weather that because it's like a storm that passes through. It also signifies that people return in your life, sort of blasts from the past. They come back, old romances, maybe your lover in your life a couple of years ago, and boom, they call you up and you're thinking, why are they calling me now? Well, check it out. It's probably during Mercury retrograde. It makes us remember things that were nearly forgotten, relationships and other things. It doesn't mean that it is a good idea to look back into those relationships other than philosophically, because usually when we've ended something, it's just good to keep on moving. And I'm just saying, it could bring someone from a past life into your life too. It's not the best time to get a haircut during Mercury retrograde. You probably won't like it. And calendars and schedules tend to be more mutable. They flip-flop around and rearrange, and people cancel and reschedule, and you can kind of count on that, and it's no big deal. We just reschedule. It's particularly affecting contracts, and it can cause delays in negotiations, in terms, in the execution of contracts, dates related to the contract, and they can become bogged down or void. And particularly also known for the fact that it affects communication in a poor way. So be very clear. Well, you should always be that way, right? But be particularly clear during Mercury retrograde that you dot your I's, cross your T's, and make sure that the other person is on the same wavelength. Kind of funny, some of the text mistakes that we get. I know I've found some of the voice text corrections on my Galaxy S4 kind of hilarious. Sometimes I'm so glad I checked before I sent them because I probably would have irritated the other person if they got it. I don't know. One was, I don't know what I said, but it put in the word devil. And I'm like, what? How did you get that word? But it did happen during Mercury retrograde, so who knows? Anyway, Mercury retrograde is a good time to be flexible with regards to your schedule. Pay extra attention to the details of a contract. You might delay entering a new contract, but it is a great time to go back and reorganize your perception of the past. Maybe put photo albums together if any of y'all still have some of those out there. Maybe digitize your photos and get them organized and think back over relationships and things that have occurred in the past, some of your memories, and sort of put those in order and come to terms with the fact that they do exist and that they are in the past for you. With Mercury receding and affecting some of the air signs, it makes it easier actually for us to see the past in a different light or from another angle. Mercury retrograde being a time that we can be easily misunderstood brings us to today's topic, which is, why can't you see me? Well, we've all felt misunderstood. And today I'm talking about perception from a variety of angles. I'm going to play with your mind a little bit in the sense that I'm going to draw your attention to the many ways that we can perceive ourselves and others, whether living or passed on. One of the most interesting authors on mediumship and the afterlife wrote a book called Clairvoyance in 1899. His name is C.W. Ledbetter. And in his book, he defines clairvoyance as the power to see what is hidden from ordinary physical sight, and that it may or may not be experienced with clairaudience, which is clear hearing, the power to hear what would be inaudible to the ordinary physical ear. We are all familiar with the concept that there is a visible spectrum of light and audible spectrum of sound, and that segment of those spectrums is actually quite limited. We know that dogs hear beyond the range of humans, that bats can sense their way through the darkness using radar, that empaths pick up emotions and telepaths pick up thoughts, and mediums see dead people. But what about the people that have crossed? Do they see us? And the answer to that is not always. The reason for that is that energy follows focus, and our energy follows our focus, our thoughts, our emotional direction. Energy follows focus. The first time that I became aware that spirits did not always see me was during a house clearing. I had gone in and was sensing the house. I tend to do sort of a house reading first and correlate with the owners where the activity is and verify that I'm picking up the same things or more than they have experienced. And this spirit wandered through the living room of their home, and he was completely unaware of me. It kind of floored me because I was fully aware that I could see him, but he couldn't see me. And I've heard, like in the other side, once we're out of body, that those that are of higher vibration can visit those at the lower vibrational levels, but those at the lower vibrational levels can't rise to connect with those at the higher vibration until they change their perspective. And I just found it fascinating that he couldn't see me at that time. Later in the house clearing, he did. It was interesting to me that he couldn't. And the next time that I became aware that spirits couldn't always see me, although I could see them, was a more personal experience for me. My mom, who's living, was having a heart oblation surgery. When she was under anesthetic, she coded 4 times. And my brother and I didn't know it at the time that that was going on. But while we were waiting, I saw her wandering by. She was in spirit, obviously not physically. She was looking down and kind of in her own little world, just taking a little walk. And she was completely unaware that I or he were there. It was after the surgery that we found out that she had physically left her body at least 4 times during that surgery. Interesting, she and I have a good relationship, but she just didn't seem to notice me there. Many of us, especially of you that are more sensitive, grew up feeling misunderstood. And that feeling can continue into adulthood. We can feel misunderstood. We can feel not seen, whether we're in the body life or not. We can feel alone. One of the reasons that we're here in the physical, besides learning the mastery of the physical dimension or the phenomenon of experiencing separateness, which is almost an artificial state. I guess it isn't totally artificial or we wouldn't be doing it, but it's our lesser state in the sense that we're more than our bodies. One of the other reasons might be that we're playing out a role that gives us a different perspective. So we gain that perspective whether we come into the body state, sometimes when we meditate or we connect to the higher vibrational realms in trance work or dream state. It's really helpful because it gives us a fresh perspective. And that's the reason that clients come for readings, to gain a new perspective, a higher view of their lives with regards to concerns that they have about their family, their career, where they're supposed to be as far as job or location, finances, their relationships, understanding their grief and loss. And they come trying to understand from a new perspective love too. It's all about image, perception, perspective. WWE wrestler John Cena's famous saying is, "You can't see me." And by that, I love that, he means like he's like a ninja. He's present but invisible, and that he moves so fast that you can't see him coming. It also indicates that his true nature is hidden from sight. And vibrational planes are like that. You can't be aware of something unless we're open to it. But love is always there for us. It's in us. It moves through us. It surrounds us like a shield. And if we only have the ability to match the vibration and to allow it, boom, there it is. I wrote a talk one time called The Mirror of the Mind, and I'm going to share bits and bobs of that with you. And I begin it with a quote from the Brothers Grimm and their story of Snow White. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? O Lady Queen, though fair ye be, Snow White is fairer far to see." Like mirrors, our lives reflect many things. Roy H. Williams said one time, "You see a person when you look in the mirror that no one sees but you. Other people see a person when they look at you, but you're not that person either." When you look in a mirror, what do you see? How do you see yourself? How do you think others see you? I'd like to share a quote with you from someone that you might recognize. And the quote goes like this: "There was a time in my marriage when I could no longer look at myself in the mirror. I couldn't feel that I was a nice person. A bad relationship can do that to you, can make you doubt everything good you ever felt about yourself." Who said that? It was actually the famous gospel and R&B singer Dionne Warwick. And who said this? "I had pimples so bad it used to make me shy. I used to not look at myself. I'd hide my face in the dark. I wouldn't even want to look in the mirror, and my father teased me, and I just hated it, and I cried every day." That was Michael Jackson. But not all mirror stories are depressing. Actor Jim Carrey said that, "I practiced making faces in the mirror, and it would drive my mother crazy. She used to scare me by saying that I was going to see the devil if I kept looking in the mirror, and that fascinated me even more, of course." Even the famous are not immune to the image that they see reflected in the mirror. As a child, our sense of identity is created as a reflection of ourselves in the eyes, words, and actions of our parents. We are identified by our name, our form. We, as humans, segregate and partition our lives, and in some cases, these boundaries and veils are important to retain. For example, keeping an emotional and physical distance between us and the words and actions of an abuser. But in other cases, this segregation can pose a potential harm. For example, in a relationship where one party allows the other into the intimacies surrounding the details of their inner life and thoughts, and the other remains a closed book. The public lives of these two remain separated. The one trying to drop the veil and create transparency and flow, the other trying to retain opacity and occlusion, mystery and illusion. Veils are important in the sense that they create a semi-permeable boundary between two states of being. We might hear in numerology, if we're in a 3-year, that we are in harmony, integrating. In other words, dropping the veil between partitioned portions of ourselves, perhaps better integrating our lives for the care of others, work, relationships, play, and self-care. The veil can be considered to be a boundary. How translucent we allow that veil to become, how visible we will allow ourselves to be seen, how far it can be lowered. That decision determines the clarity of communication between us and the other people involved. It determines the clarity of communication between us and the other unseen world. We've heard the term blocked, and that means that someone's keeping up a shield or a thick veil to separate themselves from connection with others. And it's the same thing in spirit. If we choose to keep our veil dense, our authentic selves are not visible to others. Sometimes we're not even visible to ourselves. But if we choose to drop our veil, allowing ourselves to be seen, to be vulnerable, to be sensitive, then there we are, and we are beautiful. These veils that we hold divide us, and they are controlled by our will. So the will of an individual, you, others, determines how much may be seen. The veil is what blocks our image, our perception, our perspective. If it's our goal to seek connection, to be clearer in our communication, how do we drop the veil? We do it by becoming transparent. Well, how do we become transparent? That transparency can best be found by going within yourself and finding out who are you and what do you feel and what do you want and what don't you want. Within us, we can connect to our inner truths and feelings. We can more clearly hear and see spirit when we leave our ego and intellect behind. Life and mediumship are not acts of doing. It's a process of being. It's stepping aside and allowing transparent communication. We set the boundaries, and the barriers should only be maintained against undesirable things. We've discovered, as we've grown up and developed our awareness, that we may have inherited and internalized a perspective which might actually be quite different from the reality of our true nature. We might think that we are a bad person because we were told to be so, but we know deep inside ourselves we are good. And so we seek to be seen in our truth and for our authentic self, to be seen for who we really are. Or do we fear being seen? As we range further from our place of birth, our childhood home, and begin exploring the world, expanding and testing our boundaries, we encounter challenges that test us and bring our true nature to the forefront. Sometimes we like what we see, and sometimes we don't. I like Dolly Parton's phrase in her song, "Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug." The popular Bible verse, 1 Corinthians 13:11, reads, "When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things." Spoke, understood, thought, and changed. Changed in word, changed in perspective, changed even in thought. A transmutation that occurs in the creative parts of us, our words, our mind, our thoughts. A transformation from the influenced perspective of baby thinking to the independent perspective of adult thinking. Mirrors can both reflect and distort. I think we can change ourselves from the inside out so that we can see ourselves clearly. How do we make that change? If it isn't in the reflections of us in the eyes, words, and actions of others, Well, then what? And I want to know, like, is it vanity that we care how we appeal to others? The Dhammapada teaches us that he who gives himself to vanity and does not give himself to meditation will in time envy him who has exerted himself in meditation. Well, why? What does that mean anyway? And are we supposed to just lose ourselves in mysticism and spirituality and forget the challenges and heartaches that we face in our world? Or is it maybe that by going within ourselves into the inner us through meditation, that we can better see ourselves for who and what we are? And also through this process of quiet contemplation, we can begin to explore the balance and connections between the two worlds. Michael Jackson sang to us the songs, "I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways." And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. But I think if we are to truly change ourselves and thus change the world, surely we must see ourselves first. But can we? Can we see ourselves clearly? That verse about thinking as a child continues into another verse, verse 12, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then shall I know even as I am known." Wow. To know even as I am known, to be seen clearly for truly who I am, to have the veil lifted from our eyes so that we can clearly see each other for what and whom we truly are. What a sense of relief to have that veil dropped. Or is it? You know, we hear the expression during some mediumship events on the platform, thank you for allowing me to stand between the two worlds. What exactly is meant by that? Well, that means that the medium serves as the veil or the surface of the mirror between the two worlds. We become the veil. At least our physical body is. And beyond our body, each of us, not just those of us that work as mediums, is comprised of many unseen aspects. We have our intellect, our ego, and our spirit. And in order for us to hear spirit, we need to drop the earthly aspects of the veil, specifically our ego and the intellect, in order for spirit to be seen clearly and for clear communication between the two worlds to occur. And this can be done through a daily practice of meditation or going within, and through the simple process that characterizes all things metaphysical. Just relax and focus. That's the rule. Relax and focus. And what happens? Energy follows focus. Clairvoyance, the clear seeing, is the ability to see anything not physically present, objects, animals, people. And that sight usually occurs in the mind's eye. Now, there's some mediums that say that that's their normal vision state, that they see spirit all the time. Others have to train their perception and develop it through meditation or study with a more advanced medium in order to achieve it. In order for us to hear spirit, we have to drop the earthly aspects of our veil. We were talking about how the veil separates the two worlds, the veil separates us from other people, and it can separate us from a perception of ourself too. But to encourage you, I just want to tell you that I'm always floored by the depth and beauty of love that's available to us at all times. And I'm saddened by the observation the spirits of people, whether they're living or they've crossed over, seem oblivious to that vibration of love. There isn't any greater beauty to me than seeing someone either here or in the other world find a higher vibration. It's just spectacular to witness. And there are those people here whose mission is to help spirits cross over. There might be some of you in the listening audience that your mission is to help spirits be able to find their way home, to help them realize that they are no longer in the body state, that they're just in the astral realm, and that realm, the astral realm, isn't the limit of where they can go. and to be able to help them cross over into the light. And that is some beautiful work. The astral realm, discussed it in some previous shows, but I'll repeat right here because I don't know if you heard them. Anyway, the astral realm is that realm where if a spirit is not adept at crossing over, or they suffer a tremendous shock upon crossing, or they don't realize that they've crossed, or they're tied to something physical here in the earth, the astral realm looks to them exactly the same as it looks to us. The earth looks the same. But as they sort of begin noticing that they're not in body, the world that they witness, our world, they can actually see the particulate matter that comprises our world. And you and I know that chair you're sitting in, or the desk that you're at, or the couch that you're laying on isn't technically solid, but we think of it as solid. And in the astral realm, you would be able to see that particulate. In the etheric realm, which is higher than that, and that would be the realm that those people would be helping people cross into, it's the realm of light and sound, perfect light, perfect sound, perfect love. It's the realm of the universal mind, and that's where a lot of things can be seen, and that's where you hear about things like the halls of wisdom, or just the great sights that are available and the great places to visit on the other side. That's where your etheric homes are as well, and we'll be talking in an upcoming episode about our etheric homes, what those are and the reality of them. But for now, let's see, what are these two worlds exactly, like just simplified down to the physical and the non-physical, the seen and unseen? You know, they're supposed to be mirror images of one another. You've heard the expression, as above, so below. One of the most interesting mysteries of the two worlds that I like to ponder and to share is the reflective nature of the umbilical cord and the silver cord. Now, in the womb, when we are developing in darkness, we're connected to our mother by an umbilical cord, and that cord supplies us with the nutrition necessary to survive. Our spirit drifts in and out of our body while we are in the womb. In Islam, they think that the spirit lodges in the body permanently at 3 months. There are other perspectives from different religions and spiritual viewpoints, but our spirits drift in and out of our bodies from a medium's perspective until birth. Then, as we pass from darkness of the womb into the light of the world, the cord is severed, and we exist in the lower vibration of the material plane, connected to the source, or the other side, the unseen realm, by a silver cord that nourishes us while we traverse the earth plane. When it's time for our transition, maybe we have time to think about it and our spirit starts drifting across. I'm sure each of you either has or has heard a story of someone who was crossing and they began to dialogue with those on the other side. As that silver cord is cut, our transition to the other world begins. We're reborn into our out-of-body state. We pass again from darkness into light. And it's just really beautiful to me, and it has a lot of symmetry, and it made me wonder when my guides demonstrated that concept to me, well, if you're exclusively in the other realm, what ties people to the earth plane? Maybe it's the continued experiences of those that they love and have left behind that mirror ourselves. What I learned was that it's the cord of love that connects us all, because we are interrelated, we are interconnected. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, a beautiful phrase reads as follows: "My face is the mirror. Within me my eye spins living fire, dawn and dusk. I am the swallow skimming, vagabond, servant, and God." That's from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. So we're in a constant state of becoming, of being born and reborn. It's eternal change. In the Bible, God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over all the earth." So God created man in his own image, male and female created he them. So we're, in a way, the eyes of God, we're the mirror of God, we're the skin cells of God, all of us made in the image of the source of all that is. And our lives become the mirrors of how we're doing at that vibrational level. Like our lives become a reflection of how we are as a vibrational level. And we, as extensions of the divine, look back and perceive the divine from this vantage point of a physical manifestation. And that's just mind blowing. And whether you think of God as a collective consciousness or Trinity, or whether you just think of the source as energy or spirit or part of a matrix that infuses everything that we are, it's interesting to think of ourselves as looking back upon our source of origin and being parts of that source of origin. At breakfast the other day, I was talking with a couple of friends, and we were talking about the phenomenon that Doug had discovered by accident. I'm hoping to get him on the show sometime. He's a little shy. But he found out that if you set up a television so that it could see the viewer and then looped that perception back so the television was looking at itself, looking out, that the screen would show fractals. He was fascinated by that phenomenon, and our discussion at breakfast, Joy and Doug and I, deepened to talk about how the all perceives itself and how each of us in a way is a reflection of the all. It's kind of interesting and mind-blowing stuff, and I really do hope to have him on the show to talk about that phenomenon in more detail. Buddhists say that when you can see yourself reflected in the eyes of another, you have attained enlightenment. But how do you see yourself? What do you allow your mirror of your mind to tell you? What are you going to reflect? What changes are you going to create for yourself and for the world? And I want to tell you, having looked very deeply at many people, both in the living and crossed over, there is nothing to fear within yourself. It's a process of self-discovery. And the ending is always going to be much better than the beginning. The depth in you is deeper than you can possibly imagine. And if you continue to delve deeper, you're going to find the root of your identity, the I am. You are the I am. I'm the I am. We are the I am. It's all image, perception, and perspective. Abraham, the collective consciousness channeled by medium Esther Hicks, said that a belief is just a thought that we keep thinking. So if that's true, then we can change our beliefs about ourselves, about each other, about the worlds. By changing our thoughts, thoughts become things. And because energy follows focus, that changes our awareness, our perspective. And that begins a change in the way that we see ourselves, see each other, and the worlds, both the unseen world and the seen world. Open your eyes, open your being. I'd like to share a reading from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. This is called The History of Creation, and it offers a universal perspective of who we are as sentient beings. Like the sun at the day's end, we pass west through the gap in the mountains. We go quickly or slowly towards the light, the hidden place, the house of transformation. It is the slaughterhouse where matter is sliced from spirit, the place where gods are made, the place of fire, of bones, sinew, blood, and meat. It is death, the struggle. It is nothing. It is darkness that makes a man shine brightest. Do you know magic? Can you utter the name of your soul and bring yourself back to the light? Can you speak your destiny? Create life for yourself as Temu created Ra? From the light of your works, do you know who you are? I am Phoenix, a soul sparking, a tongue of fire burning up flesh. I consume myself and rise. I am light of the light, keeper of the book of my becomings. What was, what is, what will be. I am Osiris, a god, and the ashes of man. I am the skin he takes on and sheds. I am the cord that binds him from this world to the next. I am his forms. I am Osiris forever, forever changing, eternal as day, everlasting as night. Can it be said more plainly? Life and death are one. Wow, I just love that. Again, that's from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, The History of Creation. Going back to the spirit that I mentioned that couldn't see me when we were doing the house clearing and filling the home with peace and love, when that spirit recognized that that peace and love that was being put into the home was for them as well, he asked me, he saw me then, because it was something that his focus shifted to, the peace and love, something that he had desired all his living life, and asked for me too. And it was just in that instant that he was transformed. So our perception creates change, and our energy follows our focus. Before I start the next section, I want to read a rather sobering excerpt from a book entitled If You Could See Me Now by Cecilia Ahern, Ahern, Ahern. And the reason I want to read it is that I feel like there's some of you out there that need to hear it and can relate. When you drop a glass or a plate to the ground, it makes a loud crashing sound. When a window shatters, a table leg breaks, or when a picture falls off the wall, it makes a noise. But as for your heart, when that breaks, it's completely silent. You would think, as it's so important, it would make the loudest noise in the whole world, or even have some. But it's silent, and you almost wish there was a noise to distract you from the pain. If it's a noise, it's internal. It screams and no one can hear it but you. It screams so loud your ears ring and your head aches. But that's the thing about love. No one is untouchable. I had a client come into my office the other day. She's also a friend of mine, and she was so depressed. She had been berating herself with negative thoughts, repeating in her head the horrible criticisms of her childhood that she had suffered from her parents and relatives. And she had descended into thoughts of self-harm and suicide. Because her sense of self-worth had crumbled, I reminded her of how I saw her, how Spirit sees her, and shared some things that I and another friend had been planning to include her in that were wonderful opportunities for her, because we see her as a valuable person in our lives. At the same time that she had been allowing bad thoughts to accumulate and drag her down, my other friend and I were planning good things for her. And in our session, she was able to shift her thoughts back to the thoughts of things that she wanted to achieve in this life. And she had been unaware of the good and loving things that were right there. And that's how it is with all of us. Spirit, the universe, however you choose to view the divine and its agents, have nothing but love for us. There is nothing, only love. So remember that when you're feeling down. Love is always there for us. It's in us and through us and around us. We just have to recognize it to allow it in our lives. And just like the sun sets and the darkness of night sets in, dawn comes in the morning. And it is our perspective that dictates the darkness of that night. May the passing clouds of life be brief shadows in your world and not accumulate to become a dark night of the soul. Blessings to you, beautiful lights. Shine on. Your work is not done here. You have much beauty to give, and many, many good things await you. Open your eyes. It's all here. It's always here. Love, help, the physical things we need to make our life better, but we have to recognize it. It happens. It happens for us in the other world. It happens for us in this life too. So let it happen. Open your eyes. Open your awareness. It's really a wonderful world. Well, I'd like to leave you with another blessing. I've really enjoyed the show and hope that you have as well. In the next episode, I will be bringing in a wonderful guest from Canada, medium astrologer Zahra Ali, Zahraali, and she's going to be talking to us on how astrology affects our chakras, a connection that many of us might not have made. And I'm so looking forward to her coming. She's a wonderful person. I met her as a student, and that's one of those situations when the student became the teacher. She's a lovely soul, and I'll be happy to share her with you next time. I will leave you with a blessing, and that is, may today there be peace within. May you trust that you are exactly where you are meant to be. May you not forget the infinite possibilities that are born of faith in yourself and in others, and in the source of our light and love. May you use the gifts that you have received and pass on the love that has been given to you. May you be content with yourself just the way you are. Happiness is there for each and every one of us. Go in peace. Again, if you would like to find me, you can find me at mediumtracylockwood.com or friend me on Facebook at Psychic Medium Tracey Lockwood. I will see you next week for a view of life from a medium's perspective. And remember, it's never inappropriate to be kind. And without integrity, you have nothing.